California Governor Jerry Brown signing a new law this week, and check this out. It's going to give minors in his state a chance to remove embarrassing content from social media and photo sharing websites. But is that really possible, considering things like third-party reposts and other real-world obstacles? Let's bring in our legal panel to talk about it. Mercedes Colwin, Fox News legal analyst, and Brian Claypool, a criminal defense attorney. Welcome to you both.
Great to see you, Shannon.
Hi, Shannon.
All right, so there are all kinds of things that are part of this law that takes effect in January 2015, but the primary thrust of it is to protect minors online, and it will allow them to go to a posting where they've, posted an inappropriate picture, something they wish they could take back, something that may keep them from getting into college or getting a good job. And that website has to take it down. But Mercedes, is that anything you put on the internet, is it ever truly erased and disappeared?
Great point, because there are these third-party postings that, frankly, every person that posts someone's either reposting, taking a screenshot, forwarding it to others. So it's just a web of individuals that have those embarrassing photos and pictures and postings, and sure enough, they're going to resurface again in another form. So, and in a lot of these colleges, and one of the reasons why Governor Brown wants to do this is because colleges are looking at social media. They're looking deep into the social media backgrounds of their potential students, and they're finding some of these photographs and making admission considerations based on what they've posted in the past. He's trying to make that, avoid that somehow, but it's going to resurface. Colleges are looking for it across the board.
Well, and Brian, there are some websites that already let people do this, take down their own postings, those kinds of things. But do you think it takes away a little bit of the sting, a little bit of the responsibility of people having to think twice about posting if they know, there's a backup plan, maybe I can get rid of this after the fact?
Yeah. Shannon, absolutely. In life, we can't avoid the fact that actions always have consequences. And I think this law is socially irresponsible. It's not going to be enforceable, and it does not promote self-responsibility of teenagers at all. If you tell anyone under 18 that you can post whatever you want and don't think about it, and then you can erase it later, this so-called eraser law is not going to promote any self-responsibility at all. And Shannon, I don't know how in the world anybody can determine what's potentially damaging, because that's the buzzword in the law. Is the post potentially damaging? I mean, that can open up a whole big vacuum of figuring out whether it is damaging, and then there might be lawsuits that flow from that if they're not taken down. It's not going to work.
Well, and, just about anything you put out there in the web these days, in the interwebs, offends somebody.
Sure.
So, I mean, the definition of potentially damaging can get a little tricky. And Mercedes, one of my first questions was, too, how do you enforce this? I mean, because the internet goes far beyond geographical barriers, state lines, even international boundaries. Right. I mean, how in the world is this going to be enforced in California?
Great question. I mean, we do this on behalf of our clients all the time when there are these inappropriate postings about them. So the first thing you do is you get a lawyer to send a letter and threatening these individuals, threatening where these postings occur, cease and desist, basically take them off the pages, or we're going to bring a lawsuit. And that's what Brian was alluding to, is that there is a huge potential for lawsuits in order to enforce this particular law. So what else is going to happen? It's going to clog up all the courts over and over again on so many of these because of the ambiguity within the law. What is potentially damaging? We don't really, all three of us have different interpretations of what that could be. And certainly any of these webmasters that post these, if you talk about the ones that some of our firm represents some of these, they have to make that discretionary decision as well. And whether it's damaging or not, it's in the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah, and Brian, I mean, once it's out there, why couldn't adults then start to come forward and want to, based on this law, push for changes for them or push for legal action for themselves too, saying, yeah, I posted it, but I was drunk at the time. Why can't I get it taken down?
Well, I think you're right, Shannon. And another point I wanted to make too, and I think Mercedes made a good point about it, is in a way this is almost like a form of censorship. There's another part of the law that I think it's important your viewers know about. The law is also trying to stop advertisers from aiming directly at minors, and that's another part of this law that I think should be struck down because it's unconstitutional. It violates the First Amendment rights against free speech. And you have another problem here, Shannon, of how do you determine whether a marketing campaign on Facebook, Twitter, is targeted or directly aimed at teenagers? So again, I think this law in all respects is flawed, and it's going to be deemed unconstitutional.
Well, kids and adults, all of us, should think about things twice before we
Exactly.
post them, before we tweet them, before we send them out there where they're probably never going to be erased. Mercedes and Brian, thank you both very much.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks, Shannon.